everybody, and welcome to another episode of Talking Kotlin. My name is Seb, and as usual, I am joined by my lovely co-host Hadi. Hadi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm actually at the point where I want summer to finish.
Is that right?
It's getting a little bit too. I mean, I'm not going to complain, but screw it. I always complain.
That's
I,
after he
I just,
complained.
yeah, I just want this thing to kind of be over.
Oh,
It's
I've realized that going outside when it's dark and the sun isn't burning down from the sky is a much more comfortable experience. But apart from that, I agree with you at least on the general toastiness.
yeah. I don't go out when it's dark. I
Is that
I stay
for a
inside.
particular reason or just
And I'm just scared of the dark.
that? Okay, that makes sense, I guess.
You didn't
I don't
expect
know,
that,
like,
did you? Seb? You
no,
don't
I
know
was
how to
like,
come back from that,
I've
right? It's like, whoa.
well, surely there's
Okay.
like a street light
Yeah.
or a
Wait,
or a flash.
wait, hold
Yeah?
on. I got a sofa. Like, can I lie on the sofa and you can ask me some more? How is this
What?
related to my father? It's not related to my father, okay?
Yeah, but the real
Yeah.
question is probably rather how is this related to Kotlin? Which the answer is I don't think it is. Unless
Actually, it is. You
dark
know
mode?
why?
Is
No, Kotlin Knights. Kotlin Knights. That's what
Oh,
scared me. Yeah, there you go.
I see. Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds pretty spooky.
Yes. Anyway, talking about knights, let's welcome our guest.
I don't know how that relates, but yeah, absolutely. Today on the show we have Rick Clephas. Hi, Rick.
Hi.
Do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Rick Clephas. I am from the Netherlands, south of the Netherlands. I work at Ketchup, an app development agency. Have been developing apps since I don't know for how long, but quite some time, and became obsessed a couple of years ago with Kotlin. So yeah, and then we're
So
here.
you said you work at Ketchup.
Close. Yeah, correct.
Okay, so you do know that there is a brand of Kotlin, brand of ketchup called Kotlin, right? In Poland. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, well,
But
Google Kotlin images and you'll see the
that's very
ketchup.
cool.
That is very
There
cool.
you go.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good idea for like decoration or like giveaways at the next company event.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, just don't infringe on the trademark of the Kotlin ketchup. The folks in Poland will be very angry.
Yeah.
So you said you've been developing apps. I assume that means mobile apps, but were you like specializing on an individual platform, or like did you always kind of do iOS and Android? What did that look like?
Well, it started out with Android because I didn't have a Mac, so it was Android all the way until, yeah, well, you can't really make an app without iOS. So, yeah, one day or another, you're gonna have to buy it and see where it gets you. But yeah, I currently do both. But yeah, I really love Android, so that's still my preference over iOS, of course. So,
And how long ago have you started? Just to give us a rough idea.
I don't know. What's it like? It's 2023, so maybe I don't know, 10 years,
All right.
15. I don't know. A while.
Yeah, that sounds
I'm
like it
very
has
bad
been
at
a while.
math, so not sure, but
Yeah. So the reason we brought you on the show today is actually because you are a contributor of or the creator of a couple of the open source projects or libraries that particularly help Kotlin multi-platform developers. Um, and those are KMP-NativeCoroutines as well as KMM-ViewModel. Do you want to maybe give us a brief overview of those two libraries and what they do?
yeah, sure. So let's start with KMP-NativeCoroutines. Um, Basically, it helps use Kotlin coroutines in Swift in your Swift application with, I don't know, combine or Swift concurrency. That's basically the short version. And KMM-ViewModel is, well, I like to combine the two because KMP native coroutines really helps when you're using state flows and that kind of stuff. Um, but it's just basically a wrapper around the Android Jetpack view model to provide interop to the Swift UI observable object kind of classes.
So for folks that aren't familiar with the challenges of using coroutines when you're creating iOS applications, can you explain what these are and how native coroutines help you?
Sure. Well, basically, it's not supported at all. So interop via Swift goes through Objective-C. Objective-C has some major limitations, which means that suspend functions become completion handlers in Swift, which doesn't support cancellation, or there's also this kind of annoying thing with generics on a flow interface, which isn't supported in Objective-C. So you kind of lose a lot of the nice functionalities you have in Kotlin, which are supported in Swift, but just not in Objective-C, which is, sad, but there are workarounds. So.
And so what does your library actually do?
What it does, it just transforms the Kotlin API into a somewhat ugly API that's workable in Objective-C, so that Swift understands it, and you can convert it to, I don't know, a combined publisher if you want. It's basically all based on closures and the nice capabilities of Kotlin and Swift, where you can use generic functions.
Okay, so if we compare it to a pure Kotlin application that doesn't have Swift inside, I would probably want to design like most of my APIs just exposing like suspend functions or flows or something like that. And then the key problem is that when I do make that that switch over into the Swift world, it's like this connection layer that's giving me trouble out of the box right now. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and then what do I actually need to change in my Kotlin code when I use KMP native coroutines? Do I actually have to redesign everything? Is it just like kind of like a decorator that I add, or what does that look like?
You basically don't have to change a thing. You just annotate your coroutines functions, so suspend functions or flow properties or something like that, with a fancy annotation. You add KSP and the plugin, and it just generates the whole bunch for you. The only real thing you have to change is on the iOS side, where you need to use a small wrapper function around your calls. So instead of just calling directly to the Kotlin function, you have to wrap that function in a little helper function. So you get the async function for, I don't know, my fancy Kotlin function. That's the only difference, basically.
Is that something that you would do manually, or is that also something that KMP native coroutines takes care of, like doing that wrapping?
The wrapping on the Swift side, you have to do manually. For now, at least. Maybe in the future you don't, but who knows?
Okay, I see. And then just to kind of wrap up the overview part here, with KMM-ViewModel, you said it provides just integrations with, I guess, the underlying like life cycle of what a view model looks like on iOS and on Android. What does that actually generally entail? Because so if I think about it, I know that my view models on Android need to like survive activity recreation, as well as they provide a coroutine scope that is kind of bound to the life cycle. On Android, what does your multi-platform version of the view model do on iOS?
Well, it tries to map your otherwise Android view model to an observable object. So that means it provides coroutine scopes that you can use coroutines in your Kotlin code. And it has a little logic behind the scenes where it allows you to observe the state changes of the state flows. So that Swift gets reminded that something's changed and it can re-render the Swift UI. Or if you use combine, you can subscribe on the publisher.
All right. And is there an equivalent of kind of this like life cycle integration on the iOS side? Because I mean, I think the operating system may, for example, still like kill your app or force it to like deallocate something when it runs low on memory. Is there any integration happening there?
No, not really. It's just updating the state. That's basically it. It isn't really the issue on iOS with lifecycle isn't that big of a deal. Obviously, there are still cases, but it's much less than with Android. So it's purely focused on providing state changes to the Swift code.
Okay, and just to be clear here, so the KMM-ViewModel at least initially was designed for people who share essentially all the code in your app as Kotlin multi-platform, and then you expose that view model, and if whether it's you or a colleague who's building the Swift UI implementation on one side and the Android, I don't know, maybe Compose implementation on the other side, they would then just consume that shared view model.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
So I have a much simpler question. Why is it called KMM-ViewModel and the other one's called KMP-NativeCoroutines?
Yeah, I might have to rename that now since
You not
is no
only
longer used.
might, you have to. Like
I have
if
to.
you're,
Oh.
yeah, that's like no, yeah. We will disown you as a library if you don't rename that.
All right.
Like we broke 2,000 applications. Doesn't matter, but we got our KMP right.
Yeah, I feel.
Well.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's I don't know. Naming's hard, so I just figured a name. And in case of KMP-NativeCoroutines, it was really useful for all possible targets, not just a specific subset. So I don't know, macOS and watchOS also benefit from it, which didn't really fall under the KMM term, where KMM-ViewModel was initially just, I don't know, yeah, for mobile, so Android and iOS. But yeah, it works on all.
So for those people who aren't following all of Hadi's talks religiously and all of our announcement posts, to give a little bit of context here, the KMM, the Kotlin Multiplatform Mobile abbreviation, is something that we no longer use. And
it's dead.
There we go. It's dead. And instead,
it should have never been alive. Now it's dead. It's buried.
There we go.
It's locked in the basement.
And everything's just Kotlin multi-platform now. So keep that in mind when you create your next Kotlin multi-platform project with KMM-ViewModel or KMP-NativeCoroutines.
Yeah, and if you want to come on the show, one requirement is that you rename your stuff. There you go.
There we go.
But coming back to the view model, do you feel in any way that the view model you've brought in, I mean, is it generic enough that folks on the iOS side that don't even do Kotlin multi-platform would be aligned with? Or is it very much influenced by Android side of things?
It's very much influenced by the Android side of things, definitely. It's just basically you write an Android view model and use that for iOS. I'm not really sure if it will be useful, in what way it will be useful. It was more of an experiment to see what was possible. So it was possible to have an Android view model and use that for iOS. And it's even possible to subclass those view models, those shared view models in your iOS or your Android application. So you can extend the functionality on both platforms. So I think it really aligns well with the concept of Kotlin multi-platform. And yeah, I think you have to see and use it for yourself to see if it will work and in what capacity.
So you said that the view model was kind of like an experiment to see how much you can share. How did KMP-NativeCoroutines come about? Was there a need that you felt at some point while working on a project, or was it also just like a let's see what we can do type thing?
Definitely second. As I said, I was a little obsessed with Kotlin multi-platform, so I was following all those blog posts and experiments from other people. And I think it was about 2 years ago, when Russell Wolf posted his updated findings about the Kotlin coroutines usage in Swift. And it really made me think about the limitations it had. It's just, the fact that you needed to write a lot of boilerplate, and not just on the Swift side, but also on the Kotlin side. I didn't really like that. I didn't really want to accept that that was reality. So I thought, why not see if we can do something a little different, where we could possibly decouple Swift from Kotlin and see if you can turn this into a library. So that's basically where it started.
All right, and I think it's actually kind of grown quite a lot in also in terms of adoption or recommendation. I mean, when we're looking at it from the JetBrains perspective, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. Where the current like out of the box experience of working with coroutines from Swift is just not where it should be, and it seems that KMP native coroutines really is one of those approaches that helps make it much smoother. I'm curious though, like again, you said you were obsessed with it and you wanted to experiment with it and see with it. Did you actually end up using KMP native coroutines in any kind of production apps, or do you maybe know of other like projects that have deployed KMP native coroutines in production?
At work, we're starting to use it. We're migrating We're starting to use Kotlin Multiplatform for all our new applications. So that's also where we're starting to use it. I know of a lot of sample applications out there that use it, but I don't really know about any production applications other than the ones I'm working on, of course.
So you said you were kind of obsessed with kind of Kotlin multi-platform starting about 2 years ago. I'm guessing, it was kind of an ongoing effort, and you said, as we have heard, it's already at the point where you folks are accepting that it can be used in production applications. But I'm just curious, kind of how you would assess the overall state of the project. Maybe some parts where you say, hey, this still kind of like needs to be done. We need to evolve this library somehow. What does that look like right now?
It's basically somewhere between alpha, beta, I don't know, somewhere in between. It's come a long way since the first experiment. The basics are still the same. It's still uses closures and the generic functions. But I think the real power is in the code generation and the assistance when you use it, because the basic fundamentals of how you can expose suspend functions to Swift so that you can support every kind of scenario are just there. That's it. So that's not really going to change. It's more in the different kind of scenarios. So currently it only supports usage from Kotlin to Swift. So you can use your suspend functions in Swift, but you can't use your async Swift functions in Kotlin, for example, which is something I think that needs to be supported to make it fully stable. There's also this thing that I not really like that much, or at least at the very first beginning, I implemented the compiler plugin so that it would generate all the boilerplate automatically. So you didn't have to do anything. You just put in the plugin, and that was it. It just generated everything. But it was a little bit hacky, and it caused some very not nice bugs when you started to compile your project. So that wasn't really feasible for the future, which is why it's now using KSP, which has the downside of you need to use those annotations, which, all right, I can live with that, but preferably not. And it generates extension functions, which brings a whole new era of problems when you're using interfaces. So I think that's something that I'm not sure if it's even feasible, but it would be great if that could be automated again. But yeah, I think it's basically in supporting every case, adding more documentation. I know a README isn't, everything is there, but it's not really discoverable. So that might be a good point to work on.
So talking about work, recently, I don't know how. Okay, it will eventually lead to work. Bear with me a moment. This is one of those pivots that have no bearing whatsoever. Recently, you got a grant from the Kotlin Foundation, and if folks aren't aware, the Kotlin Foundation is now giving out grants to a bunch of libraries. I think we got over 100 plus nominations, and you were one of the winners, and you got a whole bunch of money. Okay, let's bring full disclosure. How much was that whole bunch of money that you got?
$6,000.
Okay, so party out, right? There you go. How much did you blow on the night out? No. So that leads to, has that money, or is that money going to help you in any way to move the project forward, which is one of the goals of giving out money as part of the foundation?
Yeah, definitely. It makes a lot of difference. I think it really helps in the motivation to do the work. It's just I love working on these kinds of things, but when you have to choose between doing work or doing other kind of work, and you're going to think about what you get from things. So it definitely helps to I don't know, buy some time, literally, to work on it and to uh, think about ways to improve it and to actually improve it afterwards. So it's definitely going to help a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it obviously influences. I mean, do you have kids?
No, I don't.
No. Okay. So if you ever have to choose between should I have kids or work on OSS, go with OSS. Way less painful and probably more gratifying as well.
And it saves a lot of money, right? So
it saves a lot of money. Right? All of the money that you don't get paid for working on OSS, you save.
yeah.
Yes, this is a joke, people. Now it's going to come out and say, oh my God, Hardy's saying that you shouldn't have kids or family life and you should dedicate it to OSS. No, I'm not saying that. But anyway, so that's actually good to know that it is going to motivate you. I think that's one of the biggest things, right? It's somehow, because the comments and the issues in GitHub is, why isn't this damn thing that I'm not paying for working? Often aren't the best motivation. But on behalf of the foundation, if I may say, Seb, if you allow me, now I'm going to get serious. On behalf of the foundation, we very much appreciate the work that you've put into native coroutines and hope that this tiny little contribution can motivate more work and pay back, in a sense, the work that you've been doing for the community. So thank you. That's it. I'm done with the serious talk now. Seb?
What do you mean? Is this the point where I jump in like a clown and just do a funny bit? What?
Oh, you know what this is? This is the moment where we talk about our sponsors, and this show is brought to you by. This is so cool. Someone from the Kotlin community actually recommended this to me. They tweeted to me the other day. It's an Ibanez finger exerciser for guitar. So you can push down each finger individually by keeping the other ones not moving, and it helps strengthen the muscles on your fingers. No, and Ibanez hasn't sponsored this show, but hey, it would be cool if they did, wouldn't it? Right?
Hit us up, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, hit us up on. Do we even have a Twitter account? Yes.
Yeah.
Hit us up on Talking Kotlin, and we'll teach you how to not be able to sponsor the show.
What's Twitter? Am I right?
X.
I refuse. Yeah. So I actually briefly, while Hadi was doing his serious part, I started Googling for a bit to kind of see what projects were actually using KMP native coroutines, and a couple of ones that I think people in the Kotlin multi-platform multiverse are probably familiar with. It seems that a lot of John O'Reilly's example projects, like People in Space or Bike Share, they all seem to use KMP native coroutines, which is great because they're obviously all open source and they're designed to be easily like readable example projects. So we can probably put the links to some of those in the description as well, so you can kind of poke around and see KMP native coroutines in action there. That's really cool. So I have another question just about the general use of KMP native coroutines. You said you're kind of moving towards this this kind of structure, or using it in production with your projects, and I assume that means that you have someone like writing Swift on your teams, and you probably also have people working on the Kotlin multi-platform part. Is there a like what's the constellation for you usually? Is it everyone works on everything, or some people specialize on like the iOS front end part and then consume it, and the other people work on like all the shared parts? What does that look like?
We work on everything. We're not that big of a team. We've come from, I'm not going to mention it because I hate the framework, but another framework where you
You got to mention it now. I'm sorry. Like,
oh no. All right, we have.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll mention some frameworks, and then you just make some noise if it's close, right? Maui, React Native, Flutter. I'm out of frameworks. I don't know any other frameworks.
That was quick. Is Xamarin still a thing?
That's Maui now.
That was it. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
He
not a
doesn't
big
like
fan.
Maui. I don't think you're alone there, so don't worry about it.
No, but I don't like it. Anyway, so we've come from Xamarin, Maui, whatever. So we've always been writing everything for both platforms. So that didn't really change when we started to use Kotlin multi-platform.
Well, I'm a little curious about this, right? Because there's the fundamental difference. If we put compose multi-platform to the side for a second, it is very much that with Kotlin, your multi-platform, you're still writing two like sets of native UIs, right?
Correct.
So I'm actually curious now. This is because that's an interesting story. Like going from Maui to Kotlin multi-platform. What motivated that in the first place?
Bugs. Spending time on things that you don't want to spend time on. It's that's the biggest motivator. It's really you pick a framework, or no, at least you want to create a mobile application, and obviously you want to do that in the native way because why not? It's just perfect. But then you get time, money, and everything involved, and you have to make some concessions. But once you are going to spend a lot of time on fixing or working around things in a tool or framework that's supposed to help you save time, it doesn't really make that much sense anymore. So then you have to find something else.
And I hope the experience with Kotlin multi-platform then has been better.
A lot better, yeah, definitely.
All right.
It's just I really like it just because of the idea behind Kotlin multi-platform. Just alone, it's just the fact that you can choose what you want to share, where you want to share it. That really makes me feel like you have all the control. So you don't have to use everything, and if something doesn't work, it's no big deal. Obviously, yeah, you have to spend some more time because you have to write it twice, but whatever. It's just it will work in the end, and that's not something that you can easily do with other types of solutions.
So that's actually one of the selling points that we always talk about, right? Which is share what you want when you want. And you mentioned that you have to rewrite a lot. Where is that rewriting a lot? like, what is it? Where are you stopping the sharing that you said? Or if I didn't hear you correctly, you said you have to duplicate a lot. What did you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that obviously when you start using Kotlin Multiplatform, you want to share as much as possible. So if you encounter a scenario where you can't share something, yeah, then you have to write it twice because you have to write it native. But I think that's the whole plus side of Kotlin Multiplatform, that you're that it's possible for you to do that. That you're not just locked in, you don't make a choice, and I don't know, 3 months ahead you find something, oh no, that doesn't work. Then there's always a backup plan that just works. It's just, yeah.
But is that in particular with the views, with the UI? I mean, because like there is the possibility of actually pretty much, writing everything a single time. No, Seb? I mean, you're doing that,
Well,
right?
I think what maybe Rick means here is when you're working with stuff that's like platform specific, right? Like,
yeah, that of
Yeah,
course,
correct.
okay, that part, yes.
and you know what? I'll also give this to you. I think even when we look at the UI layer, like again with Compose multi-platform, you can share pretty much everything. But even there, I think we would still be well served, or it's actually a great opportunity for the community as well, to have some kind of abstraction layers over some commonly used UI paradigms. For example, just having a map view or a camera view that works out of the box or like a video player that works out of the box with multiple systems. Again, but I feel like given that this whole stuff has been released like less than like 6 months ago, I think we're still okay. we're still on track. But yeah, if you're looking for a side project, shared video player, shared maps view, I'm sure there's a couple of like interesting topics out there to be tried. I'm actually curious. Do you have any experience, or did you play around with Compose multi-platform with a shared UI as well, Rick?
Not really that much now, I'm afraid.
Okay. Hey, I mean, there's always still time. Now, hopefully you'll be. Because my next question would have actually been about the story between KMM-ViewModel and Compose multi-platform, because it's again like the classic case for Kotlin, for Compose multi-platform as well. You If you design your application kind of in the typical Compose way, you are going to use a view model, and the only main difference is that even though you're multi-platform, you're going to be instantiating that view model from Kotlin code all the time. You're not going to use it from Swift, because all your UI is built in Compose multi-platform or in Kotlin as well. So I was just curious if there's any integration there, maybe, or if you're planning on something like that.
It's not there yet. That's something that's on my to-do list. I think when you're talking about view models and Compose versus Swift UI, when you're going to use Kotlin, the whole idea is that you share as much as you want when you want it. So it makes sense to write a view model that you could possibly use in Swift UI, so that you could use the Swift UI view and migrate to Compose or vice versa. And that's an idea for KMM-ViewModel that I've had a while, but yeah, then I have to look into Compose multi-platform, so it's still somewhere along the list.
Sure, but I think you actually you said that very very nicely again with the idea that, well, if the library could do both, then once again you have a place where you can decouple, where you can pick whether you just use the view model from Swift UI or whether you use it from Compose multi-platform on whatever platform you're using, which of course would be quite elegant. So if something's happening there, I'll definitely keep an eye on that. That would be really exciting, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, in the meantime, I just forked your project and I've searched and replaced 108 occurrences of KMM to KMP. So I'll be sending you a pull request. I don't know if it compiles or not, or where it builds, but yeah,
Nice.
the big work is done. Now you just go and fine tune the little details.
Yeah, just fix the publications, all these kind of things.
Then,
No biggie.
and then he spent 7.5 months trying to update the coordinates on Maven Central.
Yeah.
Oh god, no, I'm serious. I actually did do that. But anyway, how else would I know that there's 108 occurrences?
That's actually a lot. All right.
Yeah, I know, and that's not even including the module name. So there you go.
All right.
Oh god, yeah. That's actually a feature I'm missing in IntelliJ, because in ReSharper, which is another of our tools, you have this feature of like, I want to rename the project, and it renames the project, all of the packages, everything there, but you do it at the project level. I don't have that in IntelliJ. We should build that in case we do. In case in 2 years we call it not KMP but KL-EV. What's EV? Anyway, right, Seb, you were saying.
Oh no, I was. Don't worry.
EV.
Whatever train of thought I had completely derailed.
It just
don't worry about it. That's all good.
Light railway, yeah, RRV.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. So this is clearly I think we've lost the track. So let's try to briefly
Let's bring it back on track and talk about platforms, since we're talking about railways and trains.
Sure.
Are you expanding this to other platforms? Is it usable in other platforms? You talk about Android and iOS, for example, with native coroutines. Could I use that for desktop applications?
Not really at the moment. Obviously, the fundamentals could be used on other platforms, but I think the real power is in the way you think about the Kotlin code and, I don't know, Swift or whatever other language you want to interop with, and see where the issues are and how you can solve that. And the current approach for KMP-NativeCoroutines is really focused on the Objective-C Swift interop. So it obviously will work for any other target that supports closures and generics. That's not really a question. That could be easily done. But the question really is if that would be the best experience for that specific platform, or if there would be a better one. And I think that's where the challenge is in finding out.
Okay. Yeah, but I feel like in general, KMP native coroutines has found a really good problem to fix, and I think it was something that was probably long overdue, and I think is going to sell. So, like, learning about KMP native coroutines is hopefully going to save a couple of people a bunch of headaches on their Kotlin multi-platform journey. So again, I just want to say thanks a lot for actually building the library, and I think well deserved with the grant as well. So, what is it actually that's next for you? What's like on the most immediate roadmap?
Well, the most immediate roadmap is the recently released IDE plugin, which was long overdue. So, well, like we mentioned before, you have to use annotations to mark your suspend functions or flow properties. And there were a lot of checks because there are different kinds of annotations. You can just you can export a suspend function just as a suspend function, but when you're going to see when you have a state flow property, depending on the use case, you might want to export it differently. So when you are interested in the flow, you obviously want, I don't know, a combined publisher or an async sequence. But when you're going to talk about view models, for example, you would really like it to be just a plain property that gets a value. So there are different kinds of ways. So you can, when you want to export a state flow, you can export it as a flow, or you can export it as a value, just a property. There are different kinds of annotations for that. You can mark some declarations as being ignored so that it doesn't generate anything. And there were all kinds of checks there because obviously you can't just annotate any random property. It has to be a flow. But it didn't really provide any nice hints, nor during compilation, nor in the IDE. So I've recently added that, so you have a very nice warning or error, depending on the case, with some quick fixes to add annotations. So when you install the plugin, you actually, by default, get a warning for every suspend function or flow property that gets exposed to Objective-C, with a little hint that you might want to add that little annotation just to make life a little bit easier.
Oh, that sounds excellent. Because I feel like otherwise, yeah, without that, I guess it's easy to just maybe forget an annotation or something slips by the wayside. That's really cool. And this is just an IntelliJ plugin that's already released.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so then let me repeat my question though. What is next on the roadmap? Because if that one's already done, what's happening?
Yeah, that's recently done indeed. The next big chapter would be to support Swift to Kotlin cases in the biggest sense of the word. So currently you can use, for example, a suspend function in Kotlin, but when that suspend function accepts a suspend function as an argument, that won't work right now. So that's still something that needs to be implemented. The same goes for passing a publisher to Kotlin to use it as a flow in your Kotlin code, or maybe to subclass some kind of class that uses a suspend function or a flow property. And all those cases are things that I think should be supported before it should be considered stable. Yeah, so I'm working on that right now. And some of those cases are a little bit easier than others, but I think we are going to get there.
It's great that the work that you're doing, once again, Rick, and once again from the foundation side, thank you for that. From the Kotlin community side, thank you for that. And we do wish you the best of luck. But I'll let you off with a warning this time, okay? We brought you onto the show with KMM-ViewModels. Next on the roadmap for you should be KMP-ViewModels. I kept waiting for you to say it, but you just didn't say it. And Seb kept saying, okay, so what else is on the roadmap for you? But you didn't say that I'm going to go home and now well, you are home, but go and rename this. So yeah.
Yeah, just send a pull request, right?
It's completely broken. I mean, if you want, I will, but...
Yeah, just send it. It obviously will break, so why not?
And that will go down in history as don't ever accept pull requests from this guy called Hadi. But yeah. Fingers crossed, although my fingers aren't crossed right now. And best of luck to you. And thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I suppose we can just put your GitHub in the show notes. I think that's probably where people would go to find. Is there any other place you wanna shout out, perhaps?
I don't know. That's a little bird X thingy or something like that. Also a great place to find me.
Very good. We'll make sure that we add that one as well. Yeah, and hopefully we'll also add a couple of the sample projects using KMP native coroutines, so that people can see that stuff in action, and see how nice and convenient it is. I look forward to trying out that IntelliJ plugin, actually. I didn't know about that one's existence, so very cool.
It isn't that long ago that I released it, so makes sense.
All right. Okay, yeah. Then thank you so much for coming on. And I hope that you said your weather was, this was from before the show, so people don't know this. You said your weather was slightly cloudy, but you said something about fishing before?
Yeah, it was slightly cloudy. The sun is breaking through right now, so that's nice.
Look at that.
And there were some people fishing. I don't know, they've left, so they're no longer there.
All right, yeah. I gotta make use of this the sunlight while it's out. I know Hadi would probably be melting, but that's how it goes.
Better than the dark, right? So.
Yeah, better than being in the dark. Okay, well, I think we can wrap up here. Once again, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm excited to do some of my own KMP native coroutine. For everyone else, if you are excited as well, find the links in the show notes. Make sure you do all the social media interactions that we don't need to tell you about anymore because you already know what they are. And we, of course, hope that you'll tune in a future episode. All right.
Yep. And remember that there's a lot of projects out there that have KMM in front of them. So send in those pull requests.
I'm sure people are going to love you for it. All right, great. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.